Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the presentation and review of our strategic plan. I am Kraig Steinhoff, the superintendent, and am blessed to be here and blessed to be your superintendent. So tonight my goal is to go through the process of how we came about with our strategic plan, as well as to cover the topics that are in our strategic plan. So it took us about a year. We spent all last year working on our plan, and it started with me doing a listening tour. And the listening tour included community members, included legislators, included staff, students, and we also conducted surveys of our students and our staff and our families. And the surveys were done to identify strengths, weaknesses, threats, and then opportunities for the district. And the surveys that we did were sent out to students 6th through 12th grade. We decided not to go lower than that just because of the difficulty of having younger kids understand what the questions are and not really have an understanding of what we're asking. However, the families of all ages were included in that. And I will note that our vision and our mission and our belief statements did not change. So even though we updated our strategic plan, those remain the same. So any questions on the process about how we got to the items in our strategic plan? Okay, the next slide here is the belief statements, and again, I'll remind you, these did not change, so they've been the same for several years. But I can honestly say that the support from the community for our school system is unparalleled to anything I've ever seen, and I think it's wonderful, and I believe that that's been years and years in the making of building trust. I think it's been years and years in the making of living these belief statements and living the mission and the vision. We landed on 5 strategic initiatives, and the 5 strategic initiatives are listed there, starting with student achievement, and all of these are initiatives and actions that we're going to do. But the way that we are measuring how we're doing with these is we utilize board goals. So in the fall, all administrators create board goals, and at a school board meeting, they identify to the board, here are the goals we're working on, and all of those board goals are tied to one or more of these 5 strategic initiatives. And then as the year goes on, when the summer or the end of the spring and early summer come around, we meet again. The administrators meet with the Board of Education, and they review how they've done with their board goals, and that's the way that we're measuring the work that we're doing on our strategic initiatives through board goals. So any questions on that or how we're measuring the initiatives? Okay, our 4th slide here. Student achievement. This is our first initiative, and it's our most important one. Obviously, we want to always be striving for ways to improve the outcomes of our students, and I think that's probably the goal of all schools across the nation. But we want our kids to be at their fullest potential upon graduation. So an example of how we would measure student achievement is we have a principal that has a goal under student achievement, and the goal would be measuring student growth on the NWEA assessment. And they would obviously identify that in the fall and then give an update on how the students did in the spring. We plan to expand career and technical education offerings to help our students find classes they are passionate about and have relevance for them. It's interesting to note that according to the United States Department of Education, career tech ed concentrators have a graduation rate of 94% compared to non-concentrators at 86%, and a CTE concentrator is a student that takes 2 or more career tech ed courses in the same category. So I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, I took accounting 1 as a sophomore. I took accounting 2 as a junior because it was 2 different classes, 2 different credits, and it was in the same area. I would have been considered a CTE concentrator. And so we know that the statistics show that students have a higher rate of graduating, and therefore we are wanting to expand the offerings that we are providing for our kids in career and tech ed. Along with our student achievement initiative, we developed a portrait of a graduate last year. So if I were to be asked now, how do we know that our graduates are ready and they're going to graduate? And really the only answer that we would have for them is to state that the student has earned enough credits, they've gotten good enough grades, and they've met their minimum requirements in terms of the amount of classes they have to take and the grades they have to get in order to graduate. However, we'd like to ensure that our students are prepared for college, career, and military, and so we came up with a portrait of a graduate that includes competencies. And so the competencies are on the left-hand side, starting with academic mindset, communication, critical thinking and problem solving, information literacy, and personal responsibility. And a competency is an item that we want our students to know and be able to do upon graduation. And so much like our strategic plan, these competencies were surveyed. We surveyed our staff and we surveyed our families to identify which competencies were the most important, and these 5 ended up being the most important for us. And so it was created last year, and this year during our early releases, our teachers are meeting and they're creating student will statements for each one of these competencies and for every grade level. So for example, if you look at communication, now during early releases, our kindergarten teachers have been working on a kindergartner will do this for communication. And then a kindergartner will do this for critical thinking and problem solving. And as you can imagine, as they're developing and designing these student will statements, the teachers, they're keeping in the back of their minds that they're going to have to figure out a way to show that the students are mastering this down the road. And so they've got to make sure that the student will statements are measurable. Our plan is to have all the student will statements done by the end of this school year. And then the next year, the teachers will be working on how we will have our students show and demonstrate mastery in each one of these areas. And that's going to take, we believe, the entire year to be ready. So looking ahead, the first class that will have a portrait of a graduate their entire time in our district will be the kindergarten class starting in the fall of 2024. So any questions on our portrait of a graduate? A vision I have about it is I don't want this to be something that causes a lot of extra time and energy for our staff in terms of assessing it. Our kids already do great projects. Our kids already have great assignments. I think many of those assignments can simply be documented and kept, and that will be evidence of how our kids are producing that. However, the teachers will be the ones that will be working on that next year, and will come up with it. So time will tell, and we'll know more near the end of next year. The next initiative is staff development. As you can imagine, we must provide ongoing training for our staff to ensure we're focusing on the main goals and initiatives. And if you think about it, we have 444 staff, and so as people retire or as people move on, professional development is just an ongoing piece to make sure that we have all of our staff on the same page of what we're working on. An example I could give you of a board goal for this is ALICE training. So this fall, our school resource officers trained our staff on ALICE training to ensure that we have safety and security in our schools, and will be prepared in the event of an emergency. The next one is community outreach and communication. Again, the support and the collaboration in this community is unparalleled from anything I've ever seen, and I'm so thankful to be part of that and thankful that our community supports our schools. And I would say that tonight's presentation is an example of our school district being transparent about the work that we're doing and about what our plans are, not only today, but for the next several years. Okay, now we're into growth and development planning. As you can imagine, recruitment and retention of staff is a top priority of ours, and so we have a lot of different ways that we try to recruit staff and retain staff. Compensation is one of them, but I think culture is also one of the most important pieces. We want people to want to work here and want to stay here, and so that will be a continual challenge for us. And as I'm sure you're aware, as you hear on the news, both locally and across the nation, there seem to be far more jobs than there are job seekers. And so it looks like it will be a challenge for us for the long term. Additionally, our student count continues to rise. So our K-12 enrollment this fall was 2,921 students. And our buildings are designed to hold a maximum of 3,250 students, K through 12. And so looking at our enrollment trend and looking at the growth that we have this year, it appears that we'll be at full capacity in the 28-29 school year. However, that changes a lot. Just last year, that year was a couple years sooner. This fall, we anticipated having 75 more students total than we did last year, and we ended up with 50 more students total instead of the 75. And it's been a struggle for me to get our arms around planning for growth and planning specifically for our kindergarten numbers coming up. I've looked at HRMC birth rates, and we've compared that to our kindergarten classes over the last 15 years, a birth rate, and looking at the kindergarten class 5 and 6 years later. And there's really little to no correlation to our kindergarten class size and the HRMC birth rates, and there's probably lots of reasons for that. One could be there's people that move to town that have younger kids that aren't in kindergarten yet that will join school and weren't born at HRMC. I'm sure there are families that are having children there that drive into Huron and then live in another district and drive home, so those kids aren't coming to our district. We probably have some parents that are having children in other hospitals. Maybe if they have high-risk pregnancies and are going to Sioux Falls, those numbers wouldn't be counted. And so it's really just been difficult to get a grasp on what our enrollment trend will be specifically for kindergarten. But looking at our K through 12 numbers, all of our classes, with the exception of our junior class this year and senior class, are in the low to mid 200s. The junior and senior class are in the mid to upper 100s. And so statistically for the next 2 years, it seems very probable that we'll have a good grasp on what our increase is, basically just from the amount of students graduating, the difference in our kindergarten class coming in. But then after that time, our numbers are pretty similar, K through 12, in all the classes, and so it may be even more difficult to determine our growth, especially on a multi-year setting. One of the pieces that's in this growth and development planning is the establishment of a school district foundation. And I'm proud to say that the foundation inaugural meeting has already happened. And so a foundation has been created for the school district. And it's a great story. Our school board was awarded the Award of Excellence from the Associated School Boards of South Dakota this fall. And along with that award came a $1,000, cash prize that was awarded to the school board. And our board chose to use that as seed money to start the foundation. So the first $1,000 of the foundation came from award money. And like I said, the foundation has started, and the board has been developed, the foundation board, and they will continue to come up with bylaws and policies and guidelines and try to raise money to give back to the areas that they feel are the most important for the school district. I talked about expanding career and tech ed in the first slide on student achievement. It's also here under growth and development planning. And this year we surveyed our students to determine what additional classes they wanted in career and technical education. And the top picks from our students were education childcare, intro to law and public safety, small engines, machine tool technology, precision ag / ag mechanics, and diesel technology. So we took that information from our students, and those were 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students. And we're also utilizing information based on the capacity of this building, our high school. And we have a rendering that I will actually be putting out to the public next week of a potential addition to our Career Tech Ed Center that will include those classes that our students want and desire. It will also include the help of moving some of our programs that are located here in the high school to the Career and Tech Ed Center, which would allow those classrooms that are being used here for CTE classes to be used for core classes because of the growing numbers we have in the high school. But also balancing what our need is locally for workforce and what business and industry needs. So that is very exciting, and stay tuned for information coming out on that next week with a rendering and a blueprint. Ultimately, our goal with the CT expansion is fast forward to 2026, 2027. We'd like to have the additions done, and we have a hope and a desire to collaborate with neighboring school districts so they can send kids into the center along with our kids, and we hope that that can all be up and rolling by 26, 27. And our last initiative is learning environment or learning environments. And this initiative really focuses on maintaining clean and safe facilities, maintaining consistent discipline throughout the district, and working on mental and behavioral health needs. And this concludes the review of our strategic planning process and our strategic plan. This is year one. My idea is to utilize this plan for the next 5 years, knowing that if there's something that comes along during that time that needs our attention, we will focus on that, obviously. But my intention is to go through a similar process in 5 years where I do a listening tour again and we survey again and find out to see if the areas that we're working on are still going to be the most important things at that time, and at that time we'll make adjustments to that. But this will be our focus for the next 5 years. So any final questions? If not, I thank you for being here tonight. I thank you for the support of the school district, and wish you a great evening. Take care.